You're listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and it's time for this week's Long Island News, the show that talks to newsmakers from Nassau and Suffolk County that matter to Long Island and Long Islanders like you. So each week we'll have a conversation about issues that affect all of us. I live on Long Island just like you, and I want to know more about where my tax dollars are going, and I do want to know more about the people making the big decisions that affect all of us. Well, today we're going to get into a discussion of the results probably of the midterm elections here in Nassau County from the viewpoint of the current county leadership. My guest today is Richard J. Nicolello of Nassau County's 9th District. Mr. Nicolello is also the presiding officer of the Nassau County Legislature. He serves as the chair of the legislature's Rules Committee and is the vice chair of the Budget Review Committee. Well, hello, Mr. Nicolello. Welcome to this week's Long Island News.
Thank you, Bill.
So then I was saying that there are 19 seats in the Nassau County Legislature. Currently, 12 of them are held by Republicans, including you. So as a majority leader, you must be pretty happy with most of the results of the midterm elections, seeing as all the available House seats in Nassau County were flipped to red.
Yes, it was a very good night for Long Island Republicans. We now have 4 Republican congressional representatives from Long Island, which we haven't had for decades. And we also took back 3 state senators, so we have a bigger representation in the New York State Senate as well. So all around is a very good night for Nassau County Republicans.
Right. Well, how do you think... if there was a strategy, how do you think it was accomplished?
Well, I think we focused on the issues that were important to the public. Issues such as crime, and people see increasing property crimes in their communities, catalytic converter thefts, vehicle thefts, etc. So people were concerned about that. They were concerned about inflation and seeing their salaries eroded essentially because of inflation being 8% this year. And national issues such as the border crisis and things of that nature. So I think we spoke to the issues that were important to the people. And more importantly, we focused on grassroots campaigning. So it wasn't just the advertisements you see on television or the literature being mailed into people's houses. It was door to door, trying to get our voters out, trying to get our message across. Right.
So you think it's kind of, they really had a lot of contact with people.
Yes, there's nothing more valuable in any election than personal contact. Having voters, being able to speak directly to voters and having them ask you questions and then getting to know you. So, especially in local elections, which are next year, but even in national elections, when people tend to come out anyway.
Right. You were pretty outspoken last year when it came to the redistricting based on the 2020 census. What do you think when people accuse one party of gerrymandering the district lines?
Actually, we in the legislature have have embarked on a redistricting. Ours does not take effect until 2023. So we're in the middle of that process now, and we have a temporary district advisory committee that's going through, the hearings and considering different maps. And they just recently, both the Republicans and Democrat commissioners put up, suggested maps for the new term that's going to start this coming year. So we're in the middle of that process. I think the controversy last year had to do with the state legislature and their attempts to create the Democrats attempted to create an overtly Democratic, favored map, and they ran into trouble with the courts. Essentially, the courts threw out their maps and had a special master draw the lines, which were more fair fight districts, which I think resulted in a gain across the state. I think we have 10 or 11 Republican congressional representatives now, and it's probably resulted in flipping the House. So in that case, they simply went too far. Courts said you can't do that, and the courts redrew the lines. So that had a major effect on this year's election.
Yeah, right. We did a show on gerrymandering in general. It was kind of strange because what the guy was saying was that most of the electorate feel as though gerrymandering is a little bit of sleight of hand. Right. It's been going on for, I think, what did they say, 1812, I think it started.
Yeah, I think it's named after Elbridge Gerry, who was, I think, signed the Declaration of Independence. So that's how far back it goes. One of the things that the Democrats had tried to do was they created a congressional district that extended from the East End across the North Shore of Nassau County into Queens, across the Long Island Sound, into the Bronx, and into parts of Westchester. So I mean, that was like it could have been the poster child of gerrymandering, just ridiculous.
Yeah, right. So, well, the special master that they appointed to didn't do such a hot job either. I mean, he should have been able to look at that map and realize that that little strip along the South Shore of Long Island, and then it went all the way up into Yonkers. Yeah,
no, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, he did redraw that district to some extent. It still has parts in Suffolk County, Nassau County, and Queens, but it doesn't jump over the Sound into the Bronx and Westchester anymore. Yonkers.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to reconcile. Voters in the Bronx with, I guess, Yaphank. You know what I mean? Their concerns definitely have to be different. Of course, they cross, but it was kind of weird. Now they do that. They have to every 10 years, right?
Yes, after the census. They redraw the lines in the state, and then we do it also. Our process here in Nassau is driven by the Nassau County Charter, and I know the other localities are doing the same thing. The city of New York and Suffolk County. So but our years are different. So that our redrawing of the maps will not be complete till sometime later this year, early next year, and then those lines take effect for the next November's elections.
Right. Now, do you think is there any process that would, I don't know, seem, because every time the gerrymandering thing comes up, it just seems like the two sides are just fighting for superiority, one way or the other. Is there a way to, I mean, I don't know that it's a good idea, but, a commission or so, an equal group of people so that there could really be no, nobody coming back and saying this wasn't done right or that, something that even just appears more fair, because this is a battle that happens every 10 years. Right.
Well, I personally would prefer when elected officials make those decisions. However, there are limitations. You have limitations in constitutional law from the United States Constitution. There was a New York State constitutional amendment that passed a few years ago. There's also now Court of Appeals case law on the subject. So there are, very, very strict guidelines and things of that nature that have to be complied with. So any excesses that may have occurred, in the past, I think the current framework addresses that. But honestly, you can form all the commissions in the world, but to think that politics is not going to enter into it is, I think, kind of naive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, sadly, it's just that the partisan politics that's been the norm for the last few years is just, it becomes more evident when you see a gerrymandering battle.
Right.
I think
here in Nassau, I think we've had our battles, but by and large, we've avoided the battle lines that have developed in Washington and Albany in terms of the people, the politicians becoming entrenched in their positions and just constant warfare. I think for the most part, now we do work together and we advance the agenda, whether it's a Republican county executive or a Democrat county executive, or which party has the majority. I mean, we have our battles, but I mean that type of strict warfare, political warfare, doesn't really happen here, which is, I think, the public doesn't want to see anyway.
Yeah, no. I don't think it bodes well for anybody. Yeah. It doesn't reflect well on the people battling, and it doesn't really raise anyone's spirits.
No, exactly.
Just a quick one, reminder to the listening audience, you're listening to this week's Long Island News on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and my guest today is Richard J. Nicolello of Nassau County's 9th District and the Presiding Officer of the Nassau County Legislature. What are some of the plans or whatever that you're expecting to confront when you're back in the legislature and with this, new people in.
The new officials are federal and state offices, so the equation here at the county has not changed. And in New York State, obviously Kathy Hochul won the election, so she remains as governor. Although we picked up some seats in the Senate, the Democrats still have a majority in the Senate and a vast majority in the Assembly. So I don't know that the agenda of Albany is going to change all that much. I mean, I think what we do have for Long Island is again, we were able to secure a number of seats, so there'll be a stronger voice for Long Island issues in Albany, which has always been a good thing. I mean, one time we had, I think, 7 or 8, 9 senators from Long Island, and a lot of the resources and priorities were established for our area. So it's always a good thing to have a strong voice in Albany, and I think we'll have that this coming term, which starts in January.
Right. Well, okay, so now there's some other recent issues here. Late in October, Helps County Executive Bruce Blakeman passed that $3.9 billion budget. Key initiatives included funding for 44 new positions in the Nassau County Police Department, including 36 new police officers. So how do you feel about how that's working out?
Obviously it takes a while for those officers to get through the academy. In fact, we had a class just starting this week, and it takes roughly 6 months for that class to get through and out into the streets. So, obviously it's good budgetarily. When you have the younger officers, they're much farther down on the salary scale. We have a nice mix now of experienced and younger officers in the police department, and we have been putting the resources in consistently over the years. I mean, we've consistently raised the budget for the Nassau County Police Department, and they've had excellent results. Now they face some difficult issues. Catalytic converters, as I said, is a huge issue in most of the communities because it literally takes seconds for someone to come and sort out a catalytic converter, and it could run you thousands of dollars when all said and done to replace it. So it's just trying to catch them is a difficult proposition. Although they have made some progress, they just recently arrested a ring of major operators who were buying and selling these stolen catalytic converters. So if you can eliminate the demand, it makes it less worthwhile. So I mean, they are making strides on issues like that, but it is difficult because of the time involved.
Yeah. Well, once it became well known, I'm sure you just get that feeling that okay, we got these guys. Right. We caught them. Somebody's going to be there to take their place. Right.
I mean, the smaller scale operators are one problem, but we were dealing with large scale operators, largely out of state, sending crews in, cutting these catalytic converters out, and then there was there were these outfits who were apparently buying and selling these and making millions of dollars off of this crime. So, if you can cut off the top, I think it makes it much easier. I mean, if it's not as organized, then it's not as widespread, and it's much easier, I think, to address.
Yeah, I was reading someplace that somebody was talking about people actually etching their names or VIN numbers or home address on the outside of the converter.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to the police department about that, Police Commissioner Ryder. I mean, the point he made was that if someone's going to steal your catalytic converter, even if you've etched your VIN number or whatever, and they're going to sell it to an unscrupulous buyer, it's not going to matter. I mean, the sale is going to go through, and it might eliminate a very small percentage, of your upstanding scrap metal dealers will be able to identify more readily, what a stolen part is. But in terms of your unscrupulous, basically criminals, it's not going to help.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm familiar with like musical instruments, and they would always say when you buy a musical instrument, if you're going to bring it out, put some identifying mark on it that only you know is there.
Yeah, that's it.
So that Yeah, but who you think of those things after you get robbed, not before.
Exactly.
That's the sad thing. Well, now something of interest to me is other parts of the budget, and seeing as we're on Nassau Community College radio station, I guess I do have to ask: has there been any talk of increasing the funding of the college gets with their operating budget? Its award-winning radio station would welcome some of that love from Nassau County.
We had the opportunity. We were given a nice tour of the campus back in the spring, and we got to see the theater operation and some of the other parts of the school, and some of the parts of the school, unfortunately, were eye-opening. The library, second floor, for example, with the carpeting from the 60s or 70s. So, I mean, there are needs there, obviously, that have to be addressed. But ultimately, with we rely upon the administration of the college, the trustees and the administration, to present a budget each year and to represent in that budget that funding is adequate. So there has been questions raised about whether that is so, and particularly going forward when some of the federal rescue monies start to be exhausted. But ultimately we need to rely on the experts and professionals. We're sitting here in the legislature with limited expertise and if any, on how to run a college. So basically, we have to be told. But when we do see issues, and we have consistently supported capital projects and things that the college needs. So it's, I think the legislature in general, not talking about Republicans and Democrats, we've consistently, as long as I've been here, tried to do the best that we can for the college and been supportive.
I tell you, Nassau Community College is one of the pearls of Long Island, and I keep calling it one of the best kept secrets.
It is, and for those 2 years, you get an associate's degree, and then you move on to another college if you want a 4-year degree. But the first 2 years, the expense is remarkably limited. Yeah. I always kind of felt, even when I was in school, that peer pressure had a lot to do with kids deciding to go to a 4-year school and start at the beginning. It's a shame, but they oftentimes, I think, don't want to say, I'm going to Nassau. Right. I mean, for specifically, some of the programs there are top notch. I mean, they really give the students a real chance of an outstanding future. But for some students also who are unsure what they want to do, I mean, I think Nassau is a good way for them to start and get direction in their lives. Actually, a great way for many students. It's been a resource.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the students also don't realize that the same professors that are teaching at your top colleges surrounding Nassau Community College also happen to teach at Nassau Community College. Yep. There's a thing called adjunct professors, and unbeknownst to a lot of the new students, colleges run on adjunct professors. It's expensive to make a professor a tenured, fixture on a college. So you can have adjunct professors who come in and teach 2, 3, 4 classes, and then they go to another campus and teach there. So you do get the same quality, and in a lot of cases, you get the exact same teachers.
Right. And you're paying a fraction of the price per credit.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. So in the news today, everybody's talking about student loans. So if you're starting out doing this, really take this to heart, because this can really cut, the hit you take when you're done with school and you turn around and look at what you owe now. Some of the stories are horrible, but Nassau is part of the solution to that.
And I can tell you, I mean, the professionals that I've dealt with, the professors, the adjuncts, I mean, their commitment is to the school and to the students is complete, and their passion for what they do is just remarkable. I mean, every one of us who's been, has interaction or again has come there to view things has just been struck by how good and how passionate the staff is. I think the pandemic had an outsized effect on the college, with remote learning and things of that nature, and students strangely enough, opting for other campus experiences. I think it had an effect not only on Nassau but all of the community colleges, at least in the state, who've seen a decline in enrollment. But I think again a little bit more marketing and a little bit more information out there to students, and I think the administration is trying to do more of that to let them know what Nassau offers. I think we turn that around.
Yeah. Well, I think oftentimes people think that word of mouth is enough to let people know that this asset is there.
Right.
And I think a full-blown campaign, you're right. A lot of people do not know that, what the benefits are of going to Nassau, and then pick any four-year college you want after that, especially if you do well.
Right.
If you leave Nassau, excuse me, with a 4.0 average, let's just say, well, you're telling that school that you're going to that, hey, this guy's interested. Yep. He wants to do this.
Right. Right. They're capable. They're focused. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the next thing, I guess, is the next meeting of the full legislature, is that next week?
Yes, on Monday. We meet. We have committees. We have a day for committees. So most items other than contracts will go through committees and go through the full legislature. But most contracts just go through our rules committee. But essentially, the legislature, either in the form of committees or the full legislature, meets twice a month. And that doesn't count budget hearings and other hearings that we have. So we're, unlike say the state or even Washington, we're never out of session. We may take a little bit of a break in the summer, but we are always, there's always meetings going on, and there's always, business being conducted.
Right. And just, a quick, because I always think of this when I think of, budget meetings and things like that. We still have, NIFA that's looking over our shoulder. How does this affect, you and I guess the way meetings are held, or it doesn't affect our meetings, but it's frustrating. Their approval process, which sits on top of ours, slows up projects, slows up contracts. The county is in much better financial shape than it's been in decades. Sales taxes have been booming. Even this year, we're doing very well with sales taxes. So the budget's in good shape. We have reserves. Some of our long-term liabilities are finally being addressed. So honestly, NIFA, which is the New York State Oversight Board, is now in an active control period, and they really don't have to be. I mean, unfortunately, it's almost as if now that they have exercising some control, they don't want to give it up. So I mean, there really is limited benefit to what they're doing right now, and the NIFA is going to exist as long as there are bonds that we borrowed through NIFA because it was less expensive to do so. So NIFA will sit around until those bonds are paid off, but they could either be actively controlling our finances or not. And they really need to step back, but for whatever reason, they've chosen not to. I mean, the county's budget, by all accounts, is in very good shape, and it's going to be in good shape for the next few years. Well, here's the question too: is we had a lot of COVID money that splashed all over New York State. Now, our elected officials, there was some big talk about, we could do this and we could do that and we could do the other. Now, eventually, that money's going to dry up,
right?
And it's, as an observer, you look and say, everything seems peachy, but it's hard to separate the COVID money from the regular runnings of the county.
Right.
To really see, what really is our temperature. When that stuff disappears, some people have put some aside. I don't know how, all the machinations of how they can deal with this money, because there are rules that are attached to a lot of it, right?
There are, federal rules. But we have not used the federal monies. You're not supposed to supplement, or not to supplement. We have not used that money to take the place of budgeted items. In other words,
right.
We have a budget and we stick to the budget. The Federal Rescue Act monies are in addition. So it funds programs that our budget would not have funded. There's a septic program to replace septic tanks up in the North Shore. I mean, there's a ton of examples, but what we did in Nassau is we saw a remarkable sales tax bump up in our revenues. So what we did with that money last year is we put it into a reserve fund. So that money will be spent only for certain liabilities the county has. So thinking, as you mentioned, that worrying about the years to come, we wanted to make sure that we're in financial shape. So we did put aside monies that we were generating into reserve funds as opposed to spending them immediately and then worrying about budgeting down the road. And we also have done the same with opioid monies too. We're getting settlement monies that goes into a reserve fund, can only be spent on treatment, prevention, and things of that nature. It's not going to go into the general fund.
Right. No, good to know. Well, anything that is on your mind that you want to tell a listening audience, or?
It's been nice to speak to you. We would want to wish your entire audience a very happy Thanksgiving and all the best for the holidays, which are coming up incredibly quickly. So.
Yeah, I know, right? The older I get, the faster they happen.
I know. The year just rolls around.
Yeah, it definitely does. Well, it's a big job. You got a lot on your plate, and it seems as well, I guess like anything, once you've fixed one problem, two more come down the pike.
That's true.
Yeah, Nassau County alone, it's quite an entity for New York. I mean, it's the machine or the battery that drives the machine.
Yeah.
I
mean, we have a $3 billion budget, in excess of $3 billion. I mean, our budget is larger than there's like 6 or 7 states. It's a major concern.
Yeah.
As you said, as I said, things are good, but you're right. There's always a wrinkle. There's always an issue that you don't expect, and it's kind of planning for those unexpected things is part of government, I guess.
Right.
But we're very hopeful. We have a great county, great island, and I think I think it's going to be that way for generations to come.
Well, excellent, and we certainly wish you the best.
Thank you, Bill.
We're here. So I thank you for carving out a little time and coming and talk to us, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you further on down, and as we see things happen, and any news that you can give us would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, I appreciate that, Bill. Anytime. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. And let my live audience out there say, my guest today has been Richard J. Nicolello, Nassau County's 9th District and the Presiding Officer of the Nassau County Legislature. We thank you again for talking to us. We hope you'll come back soon. And now the clock on the wall says it's time for this week's Long Island News to move on out of here. I'm Bill McIntyre, and remember, you can listen to us every Friday at 3 p.m. right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.